there's ungoverned territory. Yes, they're better off if there were a stable state in general. That's certainly right. But there's certainly no American appetite to sustain an effort to go everywhere. Well, we'll just go to the few places where we are. But then, if I'm playing the Al-Qaeda hand, why don't I just move to the next best place? So should my target be terrorists, put it again, or the terrorist leadership network, or should it be territory, wherever they were or where they might come back? Or the third option would be, I got to do this terrorism somehow, in which I don't distinguish all that sharply between local terrorism and global terrorism because it's the phenomenon I want to delegitimize. So maybe that's enough to stir the pot and see what, whether people have an answer to the question, what should be the bullseye? Obviously, everything. But if you have a limited amount of mind space, time, energy, money, should the focus be more on the territory or more on the global terrorists or more on the terrorism?
Okay. All right. Graham has given us a lot to think about and to puzzle about in our heads. So before I turn it over to you, I would like to ask one question, and that is the U.S.-Pakistan relationship, because obviously that's turning out to be very complex, very difficult. And the fact that you have a governed state, the territorial problem at issue is not an ungoverned territory, but a governed state. But the government, such as it is in Pakistan, the U.S. is damned if it does, and damned if it doesn't. You know, cannot afford to let go, cannot afford to keep. So what are good policy choices for the United States, reasonable policy choices, especially after this revelation that Osama bin Laden for 5 years has, after all, been living in Abbottabad, that's where the military academy is. So we just discuss Pakistan a little bit, then I'll turn it over to you for comments and questions. Thank you.
So as usual, Astrid asks a kind of a very simple question and does it in such a nice way. All of a sudden one thinks, well, wait a minute. So Pakistan, Madeleine Albright has a good line about it. She says, Pakistan, what is Pakistan? Pakistan is an international migraine headache.
An international migraine headache.
So what is Pakistan? So it's a mess. I was a member of a commission that was the successor to the 9/11 Commission that Congress established. It's called the Commission on Preventing Weapons of Mass Destruction and Terrorism. And we did our report in December of 2008, just for the new administration. And it said, if you map weapons of mass destruction and terrorism, all roads intersect in Pakistan. In 2005, I did an article in the Atlantic magazine. Again, if you go to the Belfer website, you can go find all that was listed, called A Ticking Nuclear Time Bomb, Pakistan. So just a quick nutshell in Pakistan, and then I'll come to your question. So Pakistan has today about 100 nuclear bombs in its arsenal, fastest growing nuclear arsenal in the world, and is rapidly expanding not only the nuclear arsenal, but also nuclear material. And if you map that, the graph goes like that. And if you map the stability of the state, it goes like that. So Pakistan is kind of this nexus at which the three huge risks with respect to nuclear terrorism arise. First, this is called the three T's. First T is the theft of a nuclear weapon or material by custodians, who then sell it or provide it to terrorists. The second T is the transfer of a nuclear weapon by somebody in the custodial system of Pakistan to terrorists in another state. And the third T is the takeover of nuclear weapons by some splinter group in the structure. Now, all those seem almost inconceivable in most states, but none of them seem very unlikely in Pakistan. So what about the theft of a weapon by somebody in the custodial system, even though these are the crown jewels of the Pakistani army? Well, if I look at the assassination of the governors, especially Governor Punjab, this is by a guard who's vetted by the same vetting system as the people who vet the guards who guard the weapons. So the idea that people in the system could be compromised either because they're simple crooks or because of their ideology, not that incredible. Well, how about the second T, transfer by somebody in the custodial system? You certainly couldn't imagine that, except if you remember A.Q. Khan. A.Q. Khan is still one of the most respected people in Pakistan. He's the father of the Pakistani nuclear bomb program. And what did he sell to Mr. Gaddafi? Centrifuges, starter fuel more than enough for a bomb, and actually a very good warhead design that he had got from the Chinese, and consulting services to help make this stuff work. All that is now 100% understood, because in 2004, Gaddafi decided to, quote, come clean, and that material is back in Oak Ridge, Tennessee today, now, the Americans took it. But where else did A.Q. Khan do business? If you look at his travel schedule, Iran, Saudi Arabia, North Korea, and then thirdly, takeover by some splinter group. But if you look at operations like the LET operation against Taj Hotel in Mumbai, either that was pretty centrally directed by ISI, or it was directed by a splinter of ISI that may, with more or less complicity from headquarters, or more or less deniability. But in any case, the group that could do that might also take over something and do something good. So I would say that's not encouraging, just as an objective. Then, what else is going on in Pakistan? Well, there's the two counterinsurgencies at least. They have the Pakistani Taliban. They actually conduct very successful attacks from time to time inside Pakistan. Pakistani military trying to combat them. You have the Afghan Taliban, who rush back and forth across the border with some degree of cooperation from Pakistan Central Authority. Then you have Al-Qaeda operatives, whom the Pakistani community has generally been, it's been the most effective Al-Qaeda hunter and finder of people inside Pakistan. But how about Osama bin Laden? Well, so very hard to tell. And I think the proposition, Leon Panetta's proposition, that you don't have, there's only two options to understand the Osama bin Laden phenomenon. Either there's complicity, or there's unbelievable incompetence. And neither of the hypotheses is very comforting.
I'm not going to sleep.
So I would say this is called a headache. And for American policy, what to do? There's the question. I mean, if you put, as usual, a nice, good, simple question, the answer is nobody knows. I just came from Delhi yesterday. We were doing a very high-level track 2 conversation with American and Indians. And obviously, a big topic was Pakistan. The Indians are in some combination of anger and denial, I would say, as a government and community. They somehow imagine the Americans could do something about Pakistan that they can't. They don't seem to be very clear what it is other than, well, fix it. Well, I had a good idea. Why didn't they fix it? Actually, I think from the Indian policy is I think more culpable than the American policy. The American policy is not successful because we don't know what to do. So if somebody has a good idea, speak up. The Indian policy is some combination of denial and, as I say, then let's blame somebody else for not fixing it. And I said to them, you know, if I were Indian, my first thing I would do would be to move. It's like you're living beside something like Fukushima. You know that there's earthquakes and tsunamis. And you're thinking, well, I'm just hoping there's not going to be an earthquake or tsunami. What? Well, but obviously India can't move. So what else? So then I would be terrified. Because if this thing comes apart, Mumbai is going to look like a small event. So then I would say, well, is there anything that India is doing that might make the problem better or worse? And I'd say there probably is. There probably are some things. But maybe this is a version of American denial. We can't figure out what to do, so hope that the Indians do something positive. So I think that the failure of policy towards Pakistan remains a central concern. I don't know anybody in the U.S. government who has a very good idea what to do. I don't know anybody in the Pakistani government who has a good idea what to do. So maybe, do you have a good idea what to do about Pakistan?